Okay, so after 7.5 years and 18 lunar eclipses and 5 total solar eclipses, we come to the end of this Dual Passover Night Timeline divine mystery from God the Father that He has progressively revealed to us through these lunar eclipses as they transpired, to give us the understanding that there are 2 Passovers during the Passion of the Christ, because the Gospel of John is running a day behind the 3 Synoptic Gospels, which is totally impossible. Yet this is what Scripture says in John 13 verse 1, that it was before Passover when they had supper, and this is on the same night of Christ's betrayal as it is in the other 3 Gospels, yet it's Passover night in the 3 Synoptic Gospels, but it's before Passover in the Gospel of John. This is confirmed in John 18 verse 28 when Jesus is taken to Pontius Pilate and they've still yet to have the Passover. John 19 verse 14 says that it was the day for the preparation of the Passover. You only have a preparation time period before an event, wouldn't you? And obviously in John 19 verse 31, when they take Jesus down off the cross in the Gospel of John, they put him into the tomb because the high Sabbath is about to begin, which is when the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins. Because a high Sabbath is connected to do with a feast day Sabbath, and therefore this is when the Passover night begins. And so this is on the evening of the 14th night, and going into the 15th day is like another parallel event of what happens here in the 3 Synoptic Gospels. But the most amazing thing that we have in this Dual Passover Night Timeline is that there's not just 2 nights, but there's 3. Because the 4th night watch was taken out of the night in Passover night and put into the daytime between the 6th to the 9th hour, it means that we have this 3rd night being kind of squeezed in to what would have been the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread in its entirety. So let me just show you that in this parallel chart. It's easier to see it. This is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the 3 Synoptic Gospels. 12 hours for night time, which is Passover night. 4 sets of 3 hours of 4 night watches. And so we've got 4 blood moons as 4 signs for 4 night watches of Passover night. This is the night of his betrayal in the 3 Synoptic Gospels, as well as it being the night of his betrayal in the Gospel of John, but it's before Passover. Okay, totally impossible. And this is what you have to see, is what is revealed in Scripture is a great mystery that's only been revealed really to us since these lunar eclipses have transpired over the last 7.5 years to absolute divine perfection and parallel. Okay, so this is the Hebrew calendar months that go through the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the 3 Synoptic Gospels. 47 lunar months on the top and 47 lunar months on the bottom for the Gospel of John, first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because when Christ makes atonement, we switch from a Hebrew calendar into a Gregorian calendar, because the new covenant now includes all nations. Alright, so this is where the Spirit has led us to and through. Most other watchmen are still centered on the Hebrew calendar, and that's because they're not being led by the Spirit. So as you can see, such perfection of time. There isn't a 4th night watch going on in the Gospel of John, whereas it would have happened between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. because there wasn't a blood moon in July 2019, but it was a partial lunar eclipse. We entered into the morning, because morning time periods or daytime hours are partial and penumbral lunar eclipses, which are these beige colours, okay, for these moons, these other 2 types of lunar eclipses. And this helps make sense how Jesus was crucified at the 3rd hour, which is 9 a.m. in the Gospel of Mark chapter 15 verse 25, and yet still be standing with Pontius Pilate about the 6th hour, which is noon, in the Gospel of John chapter 19 verse 14. It's totally impossible for Jesus to be crucified at the 3rd hour, which is 9 a.m, and yet still be standing with Pontius Pilate about the 6th hour in the Gospel of John when the crowd is saying crucify him. It's totally impossible. But this shows and confirms that there is a 3-hour difference. Now, most scholars would erroneously teach that this 6 hour must mean that it's going by Roman time, being that this is 6 a.m. in the morning, which is incorrect, because you would only need to read John 4 to read that the 6th hour when Jesus sits down by the well is noon. So if that's noon, after a journey, he's weary, obviously at the 6th hour, because he wouldn't be weary after 6 a.m. of a journey, because the day's just begun if the 6th hour is 6 a.m. So if John 4 is noon, being the 6th hour, then John 19 is also noon for the 6th hour. Okay, they can't switch and change the hours just to suit them. right? We've got 2 13th months happening exactly parallel with each other, one for the Hebrew calendar, one for the Gregorian calendar. And then we get to this amazing kind of transition of time where it would have normally been 3 till 6 p.m. for the Gospel of John. It's actually 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. because we've got this like third night. But this could also be the fourth night watch, because bearing in mind the Gospel of John is running 3 hours in advance to the three synoptic Gospels. So if this is happening within the usual time of 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. of the Gospel of John, this night time, okay, then technically you could say if this is technically happening between what would have been 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and this is running 3 hours in advance to the three synoptic Gospels, then the three synoptic Gospels would therefore witness this event that's happening between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m., which is paralleled with this here, okay? So yes, it's the night, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., but I want you to try and get this. What I'm saying is that this would normally be 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? So if this is normally 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. time period in the Gospel of John, and it's running 3 hours in advance to the three synoptic Gospels, then this is why the three synoptic Gospels would be witness this darkness going on in their time between when? Between noon and 3 p.m., which explains why they see it go dark for 3 hours. At the end of the darkness, Jesus gave up his spirit on the cross, which is obviously the end of the darkness going into light, is known as the morning twilight, that transition, especially in comparison to the beginning when God said, let there be light. Okay, and then there was creation. But Jesus came forth to bring a new covenant, but also a new creation at the morning twilight. Can you see how perfect it is? 47 lunar months on the top and 47 lunar months on the bottom, both concluding on the 11th month for the Hebrew calendar and for the Gentile Gregorian calendar. First to the Jews, then to the Gentiles. 47 months and 47 months makes 94 lunar months, which is 7.5 years. Okay, so the 19th of November 2021 brings us to a morning twilight after 3 nights. And this is amazingly confirmed, right, in this Dual Passover Night Timeline. I don't know if any of you have actually spotted this, but I've kept it hidden because I wanted you to see if you could see it. As we go through the 14th night in the three synoptic Gospels, right, this is the 14th night. Then the 15th night is here, when Jesus is put into the tomb in the three synoptic Gospels. Then the 7th day Sabbath is beginning in the three synoptic Gospels, right, which would be the 16th day, which would be the 7th day Sabbath. And then this third night would be the third night of the 16th day, bringing forth the 17th day, which is the day of the resurrection on the 19th of November. And this is why the morning twilight brings forth the transformation, because it's paralleled over with the 17th day. It's also the 19th day because that's obviously representation of 2 extra days that we've had for the last 2,000 years, which represents why Jesus waited and stayed on where he was for 2 more days in order to raise Lazarus after 4 days of him being in the tomb, therefore on the 5th day, which would be the 19th day. So I just want to help you and encourage you that this is divine revelation from God. This is the most simplest way of showing it. After 3 nights comes the final and third morning twilight on the 19th of November 2021. This is God's divine perfection of time. Only God can do this. I couldn't put this together. This is why this has been a journey for me, as well as it's been a journey for anyone else. But I've kept at this, and I've stayed faithful because I knew and believed all the way that God was in this, because he was revealing the mystery that's been kept hidden in the Gospels that no one can see. But we can only see it because the Father has revealed it. This is why Jesus says that no one knows, right? No one's going to work it out. Not even the Son will tell us, because the Son does nothing without the Father. And an angel's not going to tell us because it's not an angel's place. Only the Father knows. Why? Because revelation only comes from the Father. It's very simple. This is why Jesus said to Peter, "Blessed are you, Peter, for no one has taught you this, but it has been revealed to you by my Father." And that was in regards to knowing who Jesus was. That was revealed to Peter by the Father through revelation. If only the Father knows, because revelation only comes from the Father, then what we have is the understanding that it means that the Father therefore has revealed it. Okay, it's been kept hidden, but now been made known to us. It's always been there. The scriptures haven't changed. The scriptures are all there, but you just need to read it with the understanding of what God is saying to us. Don't listen to the false teachers that will teach you erroneously that Jesus had the Passover meal early. He did not have the Passover meal early, being a Galilean. There's no scriptural basis for that. He would have had the Passover on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And this is the best way to see it, okay? So the 14th day in the three synoptic Gospels begins during the daytime, which is known as the preparation of the Passover. They go and make preparations in the upper room. So on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, when they were to sacrifice the Passover is to be sacrificed at the evening twilight of the 14th day in Leviticus 23, okay? Then Jesus is betrayed in that night. It's before Passover in the Gospel of John. Right? That's why they don't go to the Garden of Gethsemane to watch and pray in the Gospel of John, but they turn up in John 18, verse 1, when Judas arrives. Okay, so they literally get there just before Judas arrives, so they enter into the garden, and then that's when Judas comes. Right? But there's no watching and praying for 3 hours, because Jesus is giving them different instructions in the Gospel of John, because it's a night before the Passover, and yet Jesus is still betrayed in this night, taken to Pontius Pilate in the morning. And this is when we find out that they still haven't had the Passover yet in the Gospel of John, because they didn't want to enter into the Gentile area of Pontius Pilate lest they be defiled, as they wanted to eat the Passover. John 19 verse 14 says it was the day of the preparation for the Passover, and John 19 verse 31 says it was a high Sabbath when they take Jesus down off the cross and put him into the tomb. Alright, so this is the best way of understanding it. So in the Old Covenant, they were making preparations to sacrifice the Passover lamb. In the New Covenant, Jesus is being prepared as the Passover Lamb of God. It's very simple when you see it like this and understand it like this. The daytime begins from sunrise, but the actual feast of unleavened bread begin from evening, in terms of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins from the evening, because that's when Passover night begins. So the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread goes from the evening of the 14th day until the evening of the 15th day. And therefore you get another first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread going from the evening of the 14th day to the evening of the 15th day. The fact that the 17th day, obviously at the morning, after what you get 2 nights here in the 3 synoptic Gospels, is why the resurrection will and transformation will happen on the 19th of November 2021. And you're saying, well, isn't there supposed to be 3 nights? Well, there is, when you take it in the understanding that because the 3 synoptic Gospels are running a day behind the Gospel of John, they have the Passover night, which is the 14th night, on the night of his betrayal. Then when Jesus is taken down off the cross and put into the tomb, this is the 15th night. And then the 16th night, which would be the 3rd night on the timeline, is the 2nd night, and then raised on the 17th day. But in the Gospel of John, obviously with Jesus being put into the tomb on the 14th night, we do get 3 nights by the time we do get to the 17th day. But if you see it on the timeline and understand it like this, that the actual transformation happens within the time period of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread anyway in the Gospel of John. So that's the 3rd night happening within what would have been the duration of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the Gospel of John. Jesus makes atonement before Passover even begins in the Gospel of John. So what's happening is Jesus is revealing to us that even before this timeline begins, he's made atonement. And that's why it says, from the foundation of the world, the Lamb was slain. So you have to understand that there's a cycle. It's like a figure of 8 cycle. Because whilst Jesus gave up his spirit on the 15th day in the 3 synoptic Gospels at the 9th hour, you have to understand that this is before Passover in the Gospel of John. So it's even before Passover has actually technically began, okay? So does the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread even begin, is the question. And that's why we read in John 12, when Jesus had said these things, i.e. meaning the light is among you for a little while longer. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. The one who walks in darkness does not know where he's going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light." When Jesus had said these things, he departed and hid himself from them. Though he had done so many signs before them, they still did not believe in him, so that the word spoken by the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. "Lord, who has believed what he heard from us? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed?" Therefore they could not believe, for again Isaiah said, "He has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, lest they see with their eyes and understand with their heart and turn, and I would heal them." Isaiah said these things because he saw his glory and spoke of him. Nevertheless, many even of the authorities believed in him, but for fear of the Pharisees they did not confess it, so that they would not be put out of the synagogue, for they loved the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. Believing brings forth revelation, therefore revelation brings forth transformation. On the 19th of November 2021. God bless you. Have a great day.